City Police Officer Lewis Beeler faces another charge of police brutality tonight. It's not the first time Beeler's been in trouble for roughing up prisoners either. Take a look at this 1985 county jail videotape that cost Beeler his job as a sheriff's deputy. Beeler was canned for slamming a drunk's head into a counter. Last year, while a Columbus police officer, Beeler put his foot on the neck of a female prisoner who was lying handcuffed on the floor. Today, 34-year-old Jeff Brown filed a lawsuit against Beeler for allegedly smashing his face with a boot and spraying him with mace while he lay handcuffed on the sidewalk of a North Side street.
His approach was very aggressive, very confrontational right from the beginning. The whole thing shouldn't have happened to begin with, so that I was very surprised. I was in a state of shock pretty much the whole time.
It's a real shame that this man is a Columbus police officer at all. This is a fellow with a proven history of brutality.
Officer Beeler was not immediately available for comment. Brown's lawyers wouldn't say how much they're asking for in the lawsuit.
It wasn't asked tonight, and it seems like one that needs to be answered.
Now we're going to take a minute, Phil, to show you the case of another officer, Officer Lewis Beeler, which exemplifies the liability that the city assumes when it hires troubled police.
He was fired from the Franklin County Sheriff's Department for a videotaped assault on a prisoner. Well aware of this and 11 other automatic disqualifiers, the Columbus police hired him anyway. And his excessive use of force continued. He was sued, and Columbus taxpayers just paid $25,000 for it.
Target 4's Monica Robbins has that story, and it proves that the best indication of future behavior may be past behavior.
According to a lawsuit filed against him, Lewis Beeler applied to become a Columbus police officer in 1977. He was rejected because his civil service test scores were too low. In 1985, when he tried again, he couldn't get past the assistant safety director's interview. He was also rejected when he applied to become a parking meter attendant. Meanwhile, he landed a job as a deputy sheriff, but he was later fired for his part in this unnecessary use of force caught on jailhouse video cameras. Beeler was allegedly intimidating a drunk inmate. When he was questioned by the man, Beeler smashed his face onto the counter. Beeler again tried to become a Columbus police officer in 1986, and despite a bad reference from the Sheriff's Department, the city hired him. However, during his application process, Beeler had 11 disqualifiers against him.
He's obviously an unqualified candidate. Recent prior drug use, theft offenses, fleeing a police officer. I think 9 his fault traffic accidents before the age of 30, and they're going to put this guy in a city cruiser and let him drive around for a living?
As a Columbus police officer, Beeler was caught again on tape in another questionable use of force. It's hard to see, but a woman is being carried into the jail, hogtied with handcuffs. Beeler decides to restrain her further by stepping on her neck.
Now, put your foot on my head! Get your foot off of her!
You consider that excessive?
No.
Why? She couldn't go anywhere.
Again, I'm not going to get into all the facts of the incident. The facts are known. It's been investigated. It was investigated by the Sheriff's Office. It was investigated by the Division of Police.
But you don't consider that excessive?
No. And
during his probationary period with Columbus, Beeler was disciplined 4 times. His record shows he's been the subject of 12 citizen complaints and that he's used force or mace at least 32 times and has been repeatedly reprimanded. He's been sued 3 times for use of force. The last time cost the city $25,000 in a settlement claim.
It's totally predictable, and the effect on taxpayers is that they end up paying year in and year out over and over again. Not only the salaries of these guys, but for cleaning up the messes they make. That comes out of our money. There is no insurance for the city of Columbus. That's tax money.
Beeler says the lawsuit includes trumped-up allegations against him. He also says it's difficult for him to talk about past events because in 1992, he became a born-again Christian.
Because that's a different person. That's not me. And whether I was right or I was wrong, or I was this much right or that much wrong, is irrelevant to me. If there was a reason for the city of Columbus to remove me as a police officer, they would. For that matter, with the kind of person I am today, if I knew I shouldn't be a police officer, I'd remove myself.
And we remind you that the number is 821-WCMH if you would like to call, if you have a question or a comment for our panelists. And maybe one of the things that I would like to know about is The response from the city to Phil's report has basically been that they don't want to speak with him directly. We're talking about Mayor Lashutka and Leonard Keller, although he did do the investigation. But also that they are not, their response basically was to transfer some people and to start an internal affairs investigation, we were told, and to blame the issue on racism on 3 or 4 people. We have since found out that that probably was not the case. How do you feel about what has turned into really a political football for the administration? Any comments?
Well, let me just comment briefly on the racism issue. If there was an attempt to make a connection there, it's a problem for me, and I think for other members of council, in that the question was asked and the question was answered today, that the African American and female police officers that we have on the force are qualified and capable police officers doing a good job, and that there is no double standard in hiring. And how that came up, I'm still unclear as to how that came up from the administration, you know, what they said in that regard. None of us were there.
Yeah,